So if I ask you, what do you want in terms of your goals, desires, vision board, and you listed that out for me, and then I ask you, how will accomplishing that, having that, experiencing that make you feel? You'll have an answer for that. And then I'll ask you, if I asked you, why is it important to you to want to feel that, or why do you want to feel that? You'll have an answer for that. And if we go 7 layers deep, and you really dig deep, you'll often have a genuinely emotional experience tapping into what is essentially your deepest, truest desire. Now, I've done this for myself multiple times. I've done this with friends, with clients, with people that I've shared this with, and you can do it at home too. In this work of digging into why do you want what you want, the reason why I started doing it is because our drivers, what drives us to do things, to not to do things, is important to understand. Because if you understand what's driving you, then you can mold and work, tweak on your drivers, and everything downstream changes, right? So it's like working on the cause instead of the effect. Or another way to say it is, so often we're working on the symptoms of things instead of getting to the root cause. And I feel like a lot of self-help is just working on symptoms. In this work of getting to the drivers behind what we want, one thing that I've stumbled into, I guess, is this observation that's becoming more and more accurate in my own life and in the life of other men. That so often our list of the things we want, goals, desires, dreams, vision board, is actually a subconscious agreement that we've made with ourselves that when I accomplish X, Y, and Z, that is when I will be worth self-respect. Now, it might sound super simple or not like a big deal, but it's actually a very profound deal. Here's why. Take any typical dude dream list. Ferrari, right? Jack body, big money, boat, house, whatever, right? Woman, wife, family, etc. If you look at any list and ask yourself, why do I want these things? What is it that I want to experience? What is the feeling I'm looking for? And you go deeper and deeper and deeper. So many times it really comes down to self-respect. Meaning I'll respect myself when I've accomplished X, Y, and Z. Until then, I'm not good enough. Does that sound familiar? So many times in self-help, one of the most common limiting beliefs is that I'm not good enough. But I've got something that flips it on its head a little bit. If your starting place is when I accomplish X, then I'm worthy of self-respect, of course, by default, the byproduct is I'm not good enough until I have X, Y, and Z to have self-respect. And if your motivator and your driver to accomplish something is from a place of not being good enough, aren't you always going to constantly find yourself in alignment with and congruent with thoughts, actions, habits, and behaviors that keep creating circumstances where you don't feel self-respect and you're not good enough? If that's the source where your motivator and driver is coming from, the accomplishing of any X, Y, and Z will never let you feel self-respect. That's why you hear about people accomplishing X, Y, and Z, and then suddenly the goalposts move, and now it's A, B, C. They accomplish A, B, C, and now, so that's not enough. Now it's L, M, N, O, P, Q, right? You hear about people who are ultra wealthy, ultra successful, ultra famous, and they're miserable. They have drug addictions, suicide, right? And so on and so forth. How's that possible, we ask, when they're so successful? Because an external thing, anything on your goal list, dream, desire list, vision board, an external thing can never give you an internal state. Self-respect. Alan Watts shared this beautifully. I think it was Alan Watts when he said, when we fall in love with somebody, it has nothing to do with them. It's really us allowing ourselves to feel love. But we're projecting our ideal of what we want onto that person. And now we're saying we're worthy of feeling love. But we're saying that we're falling in love with them, but it's really just us falling into ourselves. Same thing with accomplishing the goals. If your goal is a subconscious contract you've made, an agreement you've made with yourself that I won't be good enough and I won't feel self-respect until I've accomplished X, Y, and Z, that's an external thing that can never give you an inside job. Self-respect is an inside job. So flip it around and start with the pursuit of self-respect and start from a state of self-respect. So you can still have the goals, the dreams, the desires, the vision board, but pursuing them, creating them, manifesting them from a state of self-respect is a much different experience than pursuing them from a state of lack of self-respect and a state of I'm not good enough. Because when you accomplish them, you still won't be good enough. However, ironically, you are good enough right now today for self-respect. Give yourself self-respect. You won't be dependent upon the accomplishing and achieving of the goals, the dreams, and the desires to then feel self-respect. And in a twist of interesting fate, you probably accomplish those goals a whole lot faster because you won't have that limiting subconscious belief of I'm not good enough. So many of our goals, dreams, and desires are really our covert, subconscious or unconscious contracts or agreements with us or the universe that when I do X, Y, and Z, accomplish X, Y, and Z, that's when I feel self-respect. And until you get there, you're always in this gap, right? Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy wrote about this in a book called The Gap versus the Gain, a book worth reading and rereading. So I'll wrap up with this. One of the things that I teach my guys is the triangle of transformation. It's really my tool, my compass that synthesizes any and all personal development that you ever come across. And the triangle of transformation is self-awareness, self-signaling, self-respect. And I'll do a video on it sometime in the future. But what I'll say is this. Instead of saying, today I got to work on doing X, Y, and Z so I can get to the goal, whatever it is that you got to work on, see it as every time I do take this action, do this habit, engage in this activity, think in the right way, I am stacking self-respect. So now you're pursuing the work of the day, the week, the month, the year with an immediate reward of I'm doing this for my congruence and self-respect. And what you'll end up doing is at the end of the day, instead of feeling like, oh God, when am I going to get to the goal, the Ferrari, the bag, the body, whatever, instead of a gap, you end every day with, I did X habits, took Y action, I made Z decisions, and I have stacked and built my self-respect. So now the work is through a lens of pursuing self-respect, which you unlock immediately multiple times a day by stacking wins, by making good decisions, by putting in the work, the consistency, the discipline. And so then when you ultimately do arrive at the goal, dream, desire as a byproduct and a default because of the consistency, the Ferrari, the money, the body, the relationship, it doesn't validate your self-respect. It's just congruent with who you are as a person. You've become the person who's congruent with having that outcome. But getting it or not getting it doesn't impact your self-respect. So you're therefore rescue yourself from the trap of and the limiting belief of I'm not good enough by pursuing things with self-respect first and making every day about being congruent with becoming the kind of person who does, or experiences the things that you say that are on your dream list. And when you feel that feeling of self-respect, which is an inside job, the universe and everything around you begins to respect you a lot more and show up in a different way.